Hello, deadlings. Welcome back to Exploring the Entity, where killers, survivors, and secrets collide. I'm your co host, Mark.
And Ducati. On today's episode, we will learn about some of Dead by Daylight's medium difficulty rated killers. Specifically, we will dive into the ones that only pose one power besides their base weapons. These killers being Hillbilly, the Cannibal, Huntress, the Good Guy, Houndmaster, and Ghoul.
First off, we're going to start with the Hillbilly. The Hillbilly's original name is Max Thompson Jr. and goes by the game alias The Crooked. Billy is an American male. He is tall and has a terror radius of 32 meters. His normal speed is 4.6 meters per second, and during his chainsaw sprint, he moves at 10.12 meters per second. His specific realm is Coldwind Farm, and he was brought into the game on release day of June 14th, 2016. Moving on to the lore. The son of wealthy landowners Max Thompson Sr. and Evelyn Thompson, this unnamed boy was an unwanted child born to savage parents. Hideously disfigured, he was shut away from society. So ashamed of their son, they bricked him off into a room and fed him through a hole in the wall. When the boy escaped, he took his revenge savagely and terribly, slaughtering the parents that had tortured him instead of raising him. After the deed was done, he continued to live his life at the farm, taking out his deranged violence on the animals that were allowed to run free. As he finally broke free from his shackles, he ran through the cornfields, chasing and slaughtering whatever he could find. They never found the bodies of Max and Evelyn, but they did find tortured and disemboweled animals all over the farm. Coldwind Farm was quickly settled and the land split up and sold off. There was never a buyer for the farmhouse. Perhaps it was the sound of the chainsaw you could hear throughout those hot summer nights. Now for the perks. Enduring. While not carrying a survivor, pallet stuns are 50% shorter. Lightborn. Whenever a survivor attempts to blind you, you see their aura for 10 seconds. You cannot be blinded. Tinkerer. The first time each generator has 70% progress, you gain undetectable for 16 seconds and you are alerted. Now for the power. The chainsaw. The machine gave him a new life, one where the power was in his hands. Press and hold the power button to break into a chainsaw sprint. Survivors hit during a chainsaw sprint are put into the dying state. Hitting a dropped pallet or a breakable wall will special break it. Revving the chainsaw and sprinting each cause the overdrive meter to increase. The meter decreases when the chainsaw is not in use. When the meter is full, the chainsaw goes into overdrive. Overdrive. While in overdrive, the chainsaw is enhanced. Chainsaw charge and sprint speeds are increased, and the chainsaw sprint cooldowns are reduced. Overdrive lasts for 20 seconds. Moving on to the add-ons. Iridescent engravings. Engravings found on the chainsaw body representing the dark beast that lives in the fog. Fills the user with determination. Increases chainsaw sprint movement speed by 20%. Increases time required to charge the chainsaw by 12%. Tuned carburetor. Increases chainsaw charge speed by 20%. Decreases base movement speed to 4.4 meters per second. Apex muffler. Chainsaw is silent for survivors outside the terror radius. Filthy slippers. After maintaining a chainsaw sprint for 2 seconds, grants undetectable until the chainsaw sprint ends. Low pro chains. Whenever you use special break pallets or breakable walls with the chainsaw, continue the chainsaw sprint. Healthy survivors hit with the chainsaw within 5 seconds of breaking pallet or a wall are damaged for a single health state. Injured survivors suffer from the deep wound stats effect. Spiked boots. Increases the chainsaw's sprint turn rate by 30%. Begrimed chains. Survivors hit with the chainsaw suffer from the mangled and hemorrhage status effects for 70 seconds. Dad's boots. Increases the chainsaw sprint turn rate by 20%. Low kickback chains. Decreases recovery time after hitting an object with the chainsaw by 15%. Ragged engine. Decreases the speed at which the overdrive meter dissipates when not using the chainsaw by 30%. The Thompson's mix. Decreases recovery time after using the chainsaw by 10%. This does not apply while in overdrive. Clogged intake. Increases overdrive duration by 15%. Greased throttle. Decreases recovery time after using the chainsaw by 5%. This effect does not apply while in overdrive. High-speed idler screw. Increases the time it takes before the overdrive meter starts dissipating by 30%. Off-brand motor oil. Increases overdrive generation by 15%. Click. Thermal casing. Decreases the speed at which the overdrive meter dissipates when not using the chainsaw by 20%. Counterweight. Decreases the chainsaw sprint's initial turn rate by 70%. Cracked primer bulb. Survivors hit with the chainsaw are damaged for a single health state. Increases overdrive generation by 15%. Discarded air filter. Increases the time it takes before the overdrive meter starts dissipating by 20%. Steel toe boots. Decreases recovery time after hitting an object with the chainsaw by 10%.
Bubba Swire is the cannibal, known traditionally as the Leatherface. Bubba is a tall American male from the 1974 horror film franchise Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He was introduced to the game on September 14, 2017, with Chapter 5.5, Leatherface. His lore says, whether killers perform their hideous acts by the compulsions of their diseased minds, or if they are forced into them by external pressures, has long been a matter of debate. But for one killer, nature and nurture are exponentially linked. Leatherface kills not from a desire to exert his will over others, to satisfy carnal urges, or even to quiet the voices in his mind. He kills because he is scared. Scared that others will hurt him. Scared that his family will be displeased with him. Scared that their shared willingness to eat human flesh will be discovered. He does as he is told. His family loves him, and that is all that matters. Outsiders are a threat, and threats need to be dealt with. Like those kids that came into the house uninvited. Walked in like they owned the place. Looked around the house trying to find out his family's secrets, no doubt. But Leatherface deals with them and protects his family just as he's been taught. He is not just protector. He has many roles, and each role has its own face. He serves dinner, cares for the family, and dresses well when they eat. His grandpa and ma used to care for them all, but grandpa, he is old now, and ma has been still for a while. So Leatherface and his brothers had to take over. Family is everything to him, family, security, and safety. But even though he did his best, one of the kids got away. He tried to stop her, chasing after her as fast as he could. But she had help. Another outsider driving a truck. The evil trucker killed his brother, ran him over like he was a possum. In a fury, Leatherface leapt at him, the saw ready to avenge his family, but the trucker was too quick. He knocked Leatherface aside and turned his own saw against him. As he watched the outsiders driving away, the rage, grief, and pain combined with the worry about what would happen to his family now. They would surely return with the police, and the police will take his brothers, his grandpa. Without them, what would he do? Without their commands, he would wither and die. As his world collapsed, Leatherface spun in circles, swinging the saw all around, trying to fight off the myriad external threats that surrounded him. Then another feeling took over him. It came from outside his vision, crawling over his skin with cold dread. He realized that no matter what outsiders could do to him, there was something worse, something bigger that lived in the shadows. He was filled with a terror unlike any he had ever felt before, but it was almost comforting, like the fear he felt with his family. the fear of disappointing them. He was brought to a place that was familiar but unknowable, and he instinctively knew what he had to do. He couldn't fail it the way he had his family. Outsiders could come, but he would use his skills to overcome any threats. There would be screaming, but he could make the world quiet again, until the only sound remaining was the blessed howl of the saw. Let the outsiders come. Moving over to the Cannibal's perks, barbecue and chili. Whenever you hook a survivor for 5 seconds, you see the auras of all survivors who are at least 40 meters away from the hooked survivor. Franklin's demise. Whenever you damage a survivor with a basic attack, they drop their item. Within 64 meters, you see the auras of dropped items. Knockout. When a survivor drops a pallet for the next 6 seconds, if they move 6 meters away from it, they gain 5% hindered for 5 seconds. Transitioning over to the Bubba's powers. Bubba's chainsaw. The Cannibal starts the trial with 3 charges. Press and hold the power button to consume 1 charge and perform a chainsaw sweep attack that can hit multiple targets. Survivors hit during a chainsaw sweep are put into the dying state. Hitting a dropped pallet or breakable wall will special break it. Use a charge to extend the length of the chainsaw sweep. During this incurs a slightly longer cooldown. Chainsaw charges republish when the chainsaw is not in use. The tantrum meter slowly fills when revving the chainsaw. Once the meter is full or after hitting an object during a chainsaw sweep, the Cannibal unleashes a tantrum. The tantrum damages any survivors around him and puts them into the dying state. The tantrum duration increases for each charge that had been used during the chainsaw sweep. Any remaining charges are lost. During the tantrum, movement speed is decreased. The tantrum meter decreases when the chainsaw is not in use and completely depletes during a chainsaw sweep. Moving on over to the add-ons. Carburetor Tuning Guide. Automatically consume all charges when triggering a chainsaw sweep. Increases chainsaw sweep duration by 0.5 seconds. Decreases chainsaw sweep movement speed by 2%. Iridescent Flesh. Hitting a survivor with the chainsaw republishes its charges. Limits the maximum tantrum duration to 3 seconds. Award-winning Chili. Increases maximum chainsaw sweep duration by 0.2 seconds per charge spent. Death Gauge Rake. Grants 1 additional chainsaw charge. Increases time required to charge the chainsaw by 22%. Decreases chainsaw sweep movement speed by 2%. Light Chastity. While revving, see the auras of survivors within 8 meters. Rusted Chain. Chainsaw hits inflict broken for 90 seconds. Begrimed Chains. Chainsaw hits cause survivors to drop their items. Greasely Chain. Chainsaw hits inflict mangled for 70 seconds. Shop Lubricant. Downing a survivor with the chainsaw while no other survivors are in your tear radius will hide the survivor's aura for 20 seconds. The Beast Marks. Increases chainsaw sweep movement speed by 2%. Increases time required to charge the chainsaw by 12%. The Grease. Increases the time the chainsaw can be revved before triggering a tantrum by 3 seconds. Chili. Increases maximum chainsaw sweep duration by 0.15 seconds per charge spent. Homemade Muffler. Decreases tantrum duration by 0.5 seconds. Knife Scratches. Increases chainsaw sweep movement speed by 1.5%. Increases time required to charge the chainsaw by 10%. Long Guide Bar. Increases the time the chainsaw can be revved before triggering a tantrum by 2 seconds. Primer Bulb. Decreases time required to republish a charge by 1 second. Chainsaw File. Decreases tantrum duration by 0.25 seconds. Spark Plug. Decreases time required to republish a charge by 0.5 seconds. Speed Limiter. Chainsaw does not automatically trigger dying state. Get 100% more blood points for chainsaw hit score events. Vegetable Oil. decrease his chainsaw cooldown by 0.3 seconds.
Moving on to the Huntress, also known as Anna. Game alias Bear is a tall Russian woman. She was released on July 27th, 2017 in Chapter 5, A Lullaby for the Dark. She belongs to the Red Forest realm. When using her power, the hunting hatchets, her movement speed is 3.08 meters per second during the wind-up action. She uses a broadaxe as her basic weapon. Normally, her movement speed is 4.4 meters per second with a tear radius of 20 meters. You can hear her lullaby from 45 meters. Lore. As soon as Anna was able to walk, her mother started teaching her how to survive a harsh, solitary life in the northern woods. Living in such an extremely remote and dangerous area required skill and resilience. When sunlight became too dim for the productive activities, they would take refuge in their house, a sturdy old cabin constructed to resist the toughest winters. Close to the hearth-warm, Anna would rest in her mother's arms, surrounded by the few wooden toys and masks she had crafted for her. Drifting off to sleep with stories and lullabies, she dreamt happy dreams, ignorant of the events that would soon change everything. Anna and her mother were stalking a great elk through the woods. They knew it was dangerous prey, but it had been a particularly difficult winter and they were almost out of food. The specter of starvation frightened them more than any forest creature. Without warning, the elk reared, bellowed, and charged at Anna. She was paralyzed with fear as the whole world seemed to shake under the immense beast's pounding hooves. The elk was close enough for Anna to see the murderous fury in its eyes when her mother threw herself in its path, axe in hand. A blood-curdling scream escaped from her lips as the elk impaled her upon its antlers and hoisted her into the air. With all her strength, she brought down her axe on its head again and again while it tried to shake her loose. With a sickening crack, the antlers snapped and Anna's mother was free. The beast collapsed. Anna was too small to move her mother's broken body, so she sat with her in the clearing where she had fallen. To distract her from the dying elk's cries, Anna's mother held her and hummed her favorite lullaby. They stayed like that, the huntress and the elk getting quieter and colder, until Anna was alone in the silent forest. Eventually she stood up and started the long walk back home. Still a child, she knew just enough about life in the frozen forest to survive. She followed her instincts and became one with the wild. She got older and stronger and practiced her hunt. As she grew into a dangerous predator, her humanity became a half-remembered dream. She widened her territory and lived off her hunts. She worked her way up through squirrels, hares, mink, and foxes. Eventually, she grew tired of them and hunted more dangerous animals like wolves and bears. When unsuspecting travelers came through her woods, she discovered her new favorite prey, humans. Unlucky souls who strayed into her territory were slaughtered like any other animal. She liked to collect their tools and colorful garments, and especially toys when there were little ones. But she could never bring herself to kill the little girls. Girls she would take back to her house, deep in the woods. They were precious, and looking at them woke up something deep in her heart. She craved the closeness of a loved one, a child of her own. Among the pillaged wooden toys, dolls, and storybooks she couldn't read, the girls would be tied by the neck with a rough and chafing rope fastened firmly to the wall. She couldn't let them wander off, or they would surely die outside. Every time the girls would waste away and die of cold or starvation or sickness, every time it plunged Anna deeper into pain and sorrow and madness. She was compelled to try again and start raiding the nearest villages to slaughter families and kidnap their daughters. She wore one of the animal masks her mother crafted for her so many years earlier to try to calm the frightened children. Villagers spread the legend of a half-beast lurking in Red Forest, the huntress who killed men and ate little girls. War eventually came to the forest. German soldiers began to pass through on the march to attack the collapsing Russian empire. During these dark times, there were no more travelers. The villagers had abandoned their homes, and no more little ones to be found, only soldiers. Many of them were found with violent axe wounds. Whole groups disappeared mysteriously. Once the war was over, the rumors of the Huntress disappeared with it, engulfed by the Red Forest. Up next, perks. Hex, Huntress Lullaby. When the trial starts, a dull totem ignites. Whenever you hook a survivor, earn 1 token. For each token, basic skill check warnings appear late and good success zones are smaller. While you have 5 tokens, basic skill check warnings don't appear. Whenever a survivor misses a basic skill check, they lose 6% more progress. Beast of Prey. Whenever you gain Bloodlust, gain Undetectable for 40 seconds. Territorial Imperative. Whenever a survivor enters the basement while you are 24 meters away from it, you see their aura for 6 seconds. Cooldown 45 seconds. Power. Hunting Hatchets. A skill taught by her mother and mastered in the wild, the Huntress can hurl hatchets with deadly precision. Start the trial with 7 hatchets. Charge throw for maximum throwing speed. Refill hatchets at lockers. Next up, moving on to add-ons. Iridescent Head. Successful hatchet hits immediately put healthy survivors into the dying state. Set the maximum number of carried hatchets to 1. Soldier's Pute. The Huntress moves 4.6 meters per second when she has no hatchets. Begrimed Head. Hit target suffers from the mangled and hemorrhage status effects for 80 seconds. Glowing Concoction. Reveals the auras of survivors hit by hatchets for 5 seconds. Infantry Belt. Hatchet hits grant 3% haste for 5 seconds. Wooden Fox. Grants undetectable for 30 seconds after reloading. Deerskin Gloves. Decreases time required to reload hatchets at a locker by 20%. Flower Babushka. Decreases time required to wind up a hatchet throw by 10%. Rose Root. Increases thrown hatchet speed by 20%. Rusty Head. Hatchets inflict mangled for 70 seconds. Venomous Concoction. Hatchets inflict exhausted for 5 seconds. Feather Loop. Hatchet hits grant 2% haste for 5 seconds. Mana Grass Braid. Decreases time required to wind up a hatchet throw by 5%. Oak Haft. Decreases hatchet throw cooldown by 20%. Shiny Pin. Increases the Huntress's movement speed by 5% while aiming or throwing a hatchet. Weighted Head. Hatchets inflict incapacitated for 10 seconds. Amanita Toxin. Hatchets inflict blindness for 60 seconds. Bandaged Haft. Decreases hatchet throw cooldown by 10%. Coarse Stone. Hitting a target increases the volume of their grunts of pain by 50% until healed. Yellowed Cloth. Increases thrown hatchet speed by 10%.
Charles Lee Ray is an American male doll from the 1990s supernatural slasher film Child's Play 2. In-game, he's referred to as Chucky, the good guy, or the Lakeshore Strangler. He came into the game on November 28, 2023, in Chapter 30, Chucky. His lore is Charles Lee Ray, the infamous Lakeshore Strangler, was tracked down and shot after a murderous rampage. However, he escaped death by having his soul possess a good guy's doll named Chucky through a curse. Chucky didn't want to stay a good guy forever, though, and he knew that there was only one way to change that. Take the body of Andy Berkeley, the first person he had revealed his secret to. After his first attempt had failed, Chucky waited 2 long years before he found Andy again. With nobody standing between Chucky and Andy, he took the boy to the Good Guy factory to complete the process of stealing Andy's body. But Andy's foster sister, Kylie, realized something was amiss and followed Andy to the factory. Inside the factory, Chucky forced Andy to the ground and spoke ancient words to take possession of his body. But the ritual didn't go as planned, and Kylie quickly and desperately toppled a stack of good guy boxes over him. Chucky screamed his frustration as he pushed through the pile of boxes. Gathering his wits, he locked down the brightly lit aisle and saw Andy running into a thick, swirling mess of fog. He thought he was seeing things at first, but then he realized the fog was real and there to help him. His words hadn't worked as intended, but he had somehow conjured something else, something unexpected, something he didn't quite understand. And not wanting to lose his only chance for a real body, he charged through the fog screaming after Andy. We see this in his perks. First starting, batteries included. Within 60 meters of a completed generator, you gain 5% haste. When you leave the range, this ends after 5 seconds. Friends to the end. Whenever you hook a survivor that is not the obsession gains exposed for 20 seconds. You see the obsession's aura for 10 seconds. Whenever you hook the obsession, another survivor screams, then you are alerted, and that survivor becomes the obsession. Hex 2 can play. While this hex is dull, each time you are blinded or stunned by a survivor 2 times, a dull item ignites. Whenever you're blinded or stunned by a survivor you're not carrying, they're blinded for 1.5 seconds. Next up, his power playtime's over. Special ability, Hidey Ho mode. Chucky can enter Hidey Ho mode at any time, provided the cooldown is over. When in Hidey Ho mode, Chucky becomes undetectable and generates map-wide footfalls, disorientating survivors with sounds and footprints coming from any direction. Special ability, Slice and Dice. While in Hidey Ho mode, Chucky gets access to the charged Slice and Dice ability, allowing him to rush unsuspecting survivors before leaping forward and performing a Slice and Dice attack. Additionally, Chucky can quickly chain a scamper while using a Slice and Dice. Special ability, Scamper. While performing a Slice and Dice in Hidey Ho mode, Chucky can perform a scamper and special vault over a window or under a down pallet, allowing him to close on his unsuspecting prey. Moving on to his add-ons. Hard Hat. Whenever you scamper under pallets, they special break immediately. Iridescent Amulet. Increases duration of Hidey Ho mode by 50%. Basic attacks immediately end Hidey Ho mode. Mirror Shards. The good guy can see the illusionary footfalls around survivors. Pile of Nails. Upon manually exiting Hidey Ho mode, the good guy remains undetectable for 3 seconds. Plastic Bag. If a survivor walks through an illusionary footfall, they suffer from exhausted for 15 seconds. Straight Razor. Slice and Dice attacks inflict the hemorrhage and mangled status effect for 80 seconds. Portable TV. Slice and Dice duration increased by 70% once the exit gates have been powered. Rat Poison. While performing a Slice and Dice, the auras of survivors within 6 meters of you are revealed for 2.5 seconds. Running Shoes. Gain 2% movement speed after a scamper for 5 seconds. Silk Pillow. Tear radius is reduced by 6 meters, but Slice and Dice charge time is increased by 50%. Yardstick. A scamper reveals survivor auras within 60 meters of you for 3 seconds. Automatic Screwdriver. Missing a Slice and Dice reduces Hidey Ho mode cooldown by 8%. Electric Carving Knife. Decreases Slice and Dice miss cooldown by 5%. Hairspray and Candle. Decreases the time that basic attacks remove from Hidey Ho mode by 20 seconds. Jump Rope. Increases duration of Slice and Dice by 8 seconds. Power Drill. Reduces Hidey Ho mode cooldown by 10% after hitting a survivor with Slice and Dice. Dull Eyes. While in Hidey Ho mode, reveals auras of all windows and down pallets within 20 meters. Good Guy Box. Decreases slice and dice hit cooldown by 7%. Stormling Lights. Decreases the tear radius by 8 meters when hidey hole mode is in cooldown. Tiny Scalpel. While in hidey hole mode, pools of blood are brighter.
Moving on, we have Portia May, known as the Houndmaster. She is a woman of Caribbean origin. She was introduced to the game on November 28, 2024, through the 34th chapter, Doomed Course. Lore. Portia May's father helped found a prosperous settlement of sailors and merchants on an uncharted island in the Caribbean. They called their port town Fortune and created a vast trading network which exposed Portia to cultures and knowledge from around the world. As a sailor and lover of stories, Portia's father read her the Arabian Nights, Shakespeare, and Greek mythology, and he instructed her in sailing and celestial navigation. To be sure, he instilled within her a love for adventure so that she always wanted to travel with him. Once she accompanied her daddy on a trip to Italy where he traded sugar. There they also acquired a litter of Corso puppies, which her father said they would train as hunting dogs for the Fortune's yearly hunting games. He also mentioned she could keep the strongest of the litter for her upcoming 12th birthday. She named the pups Caesar, King, Shaw, Athena, and the runt of the bunch Snug. But before she could begin their training, a violent storm pushed Knight's Dream off course into an area controlled by freebooters. Desperately, her father tried to steer the ship to safety, but the dreaded Mad Mount Molac attacked them with their ships and took Knight's Dream quickly. Those who survived the initial attack were pitted against each other in vicious fights that Molac and his crew would wager on. The brigand promised that the last man standing would be let go. When Portia's father refused to participate, the most vicious of Molac's men, his son Tariq, tortured him for hours and finally slit his throat. Keeping Portia alive to get past Fortune's outer defenses, Molac and Tariq returned to their stoop and left a skeleton crew on Knight's Dream. Portia would lead them into Fortune, and once inside, Molac and his raiders would attack, pillage, and burn their beloved town to the ground. Using her skills in celestial navigation, Portia led them off course through an area that many claimed to be cursed. Known as the Dragon's Tooth, some believed the area bled into the dark, malignant domain of some ineffable evil where monsters roamed. Portia hoped to lead Molac to his doom, and if she perished in the effort, so be it. As she approached the Dragon's Tooth, dark clouds accumulated, and a cold black fog surrounded them. Sheets of rain fell and a fierce wind roared down on the ship, creating black mountains that crashed over the mast. Instantly, Molac and his ship turned away from the storm and left her to perish. But Portia refused to surrender as Knight's Dream plowed through the thick fog and lightning. Her heart thundered in her chest as the ship creaked and groaned and slowly capsized. The last thing she saw before the ocean swallowed her whole was a silhouette of a giant tentacle crashing down on them. Portia opened her blurry eyes to see Snug staring down at her. He licked her face and barked for her to get up. Blinking the salt water out of her eyes, she pushed her aching and bruised body from the ground, but collapsed onto the strange purple sand. She had never seen anything like it before. With difficulty, she gathered herself, stood, and turned to face the runt. Snug barked twice and began sniffing the ground, leading her to a cluster of coconuts and purple seaweed. She dried out the seaweed, cracked the coconuts, and ate on the rocks, quietly listening to creatures she had never heard before, and suddenly realized they were marooned on an island in the Dragon's Tooth. They were in a strange world, as an in-between world, a world her father had once described as a living nightmare that tortured the mind and played with the heart. And as she listened to these strange new sounds, she suddenly saw Molac everywhere. Instinctively, Portia closed her eyes and shrieked, and only stopped when Snug jumped into her lap, returning her to the moment with a crescendo of barks. Over the years, Portia survived on whatever washed ashore as she battled the predators that stalked the island. Ferocious animals, vicious humans, and savage abominations not of this world. Snug now weighed over 100 pounds and followed Portia everywhere. Together they made a daunting pair, and most of the survivors on the island kept their distance. The few who didn't live to regret it if they lived at all. And just when she was about to give up on the idea of escaping, she spotted an impossible thing while searching the beach for Snug. To her belief, she saw Night's Dream drifting ashore in the cold black fog. She knew better than to doubt or question anything on this island. With a whistle, she entered the water, but she was suddenly attacked by a group of castaways. In her mind, she slaughtered Molech 50 times and spared only those she needed to crew her ship. Together they spent days searching for Snug, but he was nowhere to be found. He was gone. Gone as if he had never been, as if he had only been a figment of her imagination. For decades, Portia terrorized the Caribbean as she searched for Molech. She only attacked freebooters, taking their gold and torturing them sadistically to satiate some intangible darkness living within her. A darkness like a parasite that demanded blood until it had its fill. On the occasions Portia couldn't appease its hunger, the parasite would squeeze her mind with its deadly talons, crushing reason and reality until she would see Molech's face on every crew member. She would attack and butcher everyone and anyone until one of her many trusted guard dogs barked for her to stop, and Molech would suddenly dematerialize into wisps of black fog. Terrified, the crew knew it was just a matter of time before her madness turned against them. And so, even when they finally located Molech, they conspired to mutiny. But they had underestimated their captain. By the time Portia was through with them, there were only 5 left standing in a pool of blood and gore. They instantly threw themselves on her mercy as her dogs surrounded them, waiting for the command that never came. Destroying Molech would take more hands than she possessed. Gathering her wits, she ordered the mutineers to clean up the deck and feed her dogs as she steered Night's Dream towards Mad Molech's island. Molech himself was out on the high seas, but Portia's crew captured Tariq and locked him up in preparation for his father's return. When Molech returned, he found the island deserted apart from a woman offering chests of gold and jewels. She claimed she wanted to join Molech's crew and had prepared an amazing feast for him and his men. Not recognizing her, Molech accepted the treasure and asked about Tariq. She smiled and assured him his son would be joining them for dinner. Portia served Molech an elaborate meal, and he drank and ate with gusto. The meat was especially good, roasted crisp and black on the outside and pink and juicy on the inside. He wanted to know if it was wild boar or venison. Portia smiled, stood proudly, and reached over the table and lifted a gold food cover to reveal Tariq's decapitated, glazed head frozen in a scream of terror, the mouth vomiting bouillon and jewels. Molech roared his anguish like a wounded bull, and she reveled in his torment as a thick black fog rose from the floor like a black veil. But before she could strike Molech down, something unseen jerked him backward into the darkness. At once, her laughter died, lips curled with mingled panic and rage. Veins in her neck stood out on livid ridges. Talons gripped her mind and squeezed and refused to let go. He was gone. Gone. Gone before she could stomp his head into a bloody pulp. Unintelligible words fumbled out of her mouth and degenerated into a guttural rasp. And just as she was about to scream, she heard the impossible. A bark. A bark she hadn't heard in years. She heard it. Again. And again. Snug. He had Molech's scent. Not trying to understand what could not be understood, she charged into the fog to finish what she started with, her long-lost friend. Moving on to her perks. All Shaking Thunder. Whenever you fall from at least 1.2 meters, your lunge attacks are 75% longer for 25 seconds. Cooldown 5 seconds. No quarter. While self-healing, whenever a survivor has 75% progress, they get special skill checks. If they miss one or of these or stop healing, they gain broken for 30 seconds. Scourge Hook, Jagged Compass. When the trial starts, 4 random hooks become Scourge Hooks. Whenever a survivor is unhooked, the hook becomes a Scourge Hook. Whenever you hook a survivor on a Scourge Hook, for 10 seconds you see the aura of the generator with the most progress. Power, Scent of Blood. Chase. The chase command sends the dog out at high speed. Pressing the power button again redirects the chase, pivoting the dog's path. When the dog catches the survivor, the dog starts a grab. The survivor becomes hindered and is pulled towards the Houndmaster. The survivor can get freed by stunning the dog or can be rescued by another survivor. Grabs that end without injury leave the survivor hindered. Grab duration is shorter for survivors with the endurance status effect. Search. The search command sends the dog to a target location, creating a search path. It has its own lullaby, and as it moves, its hound sense radius rises over distance traveled. Survivors who enter the radius are affected by hound sense and revealed by killer instinct. If the Houndmaster follows the dog's search path, she gains increased movement speed over time. Leaving the search path ends the bonus movement speed. Hound sense. Healthy survivors affected by hound sense receive deep wounds when they injure. Injured survivors affected by hound sense suffer from louder grunts of pain and longer pools of blood when put into the dying state.
We're finishing up today's episode with Ken Kaneki, a Japanese male known in game as the Ghoul. He's the main character of the manga and anime show Tokyo Ghoul. On April 2nd, 2025, he was brought into the game in Chapter 35, Tokyo Ghoul. Ken Kaneki was a gentle and kind-hearted boy who lived a simple studying lecture life at Kame University before a chance encounter turned his life upside down. He and his friend Hyde frequently frequented the cafe Antiku, where one of the regulars caught his eyes, Riz Kamishiro. She shared his passion for reading, and he spotted her even reading the same novel as him. He worked up the courage to ask her on a date. While walking her home, Riz showed her her true colors, those of a ghoul known as the Binge Eater. She feasted on his flesh, nearly killing him, until a freak construction accident caused her demise, and nearly caused his as well. To save his life, doctors transplanted Riz's organs into Kaneki. He survived the surgery, but something was wrong. Food lost its flavor, and strange carvings dodged him. The life-saving surgery had made him part ghoul. Confused and afraid, he follows his instinct into an alleyway where he ran into Toyoka Kimashura, one of the staff members at Antiku. Shocked at his transformation, she brought him back to the cafe. He was surprised to learn that the staff at Antiku were ghouls. They took him under his wing, helping him adapt to his new reality. He learned how to fight with his newfound powers, how to deal with his urges to kill and eat human flesh, and how to stay one step ahead of the CCG. His adaptation to his new life was cruelly interrupted when he was kidnapped and subjected to unprecedented physical and mental torture at the hands of a particularly cruel ghoul named Jason. His captors' exercise of control and profound violence were so diabolical that they broke Kaneki's mind, stripped him of what once made him human. His sense of self was shattered, and Riz stepped into the empty space, encouraging him to take control in his own life. And controls what he took, paying back Jason's violence in kind. He broke free and battled his captor. The torture made him numb to pain, and his shattered psyche left him no space to hesitation. He defeated Jason after a short battle, and he devoured him. He had been dragged into a nightmare, a tortured boy, but he walked out a powerful ghoul. He considered what this would mean as he pushed his way through the heavy doors and barely noticed as a black fog pulled around his feet. He walked out, confident that the torture was over, but as he absorbed his surroundings, he realized that perhaps it had only begun. Now on to his perks. Forever Entwined. Whenever a survivor takes damage, you earn 1 token up to 8. For each token, you hook survivors 4% faster, and you pick up and drop survivors 4% faster. Hex Nothing But Misery. After you damage survivors with a basic attack 8 times, a dual totem ignites. Whenever you damage a survivor with a basic attack, they gain 5% hindered for 15 seconds. None are free. The first time you hook each survivor, earn 1 token. When all generators are completed for each token, upright pallets are blocked for 16 seconds. Windows are blocked for 16 seconds. Moving on to his powers, One-Eyed Terror. Special ability, Kaguni Leap. Use the power button to charge and launch the Kaguni. Tentacles that attach to any vertical surface within range and quickly pull the ghoul forward. After completing a leap, the ghoul has a window to perform a second consecutive Kaguni Leap or put Kaguni Leap into cooldown by using the active ability button. Kaguni Leap enters cooldown once the ghoul has consumed their leaps. If they leap and special vault a window or dropped pallet, or if the Kaguni grabs and leaps at a survivor. If the ghoul's second consecutive leap targets a survivor, they will perform a grab attack. Grab attacks damage survivors if they are healthy, inflict deep wounds, and leave a Kaguni mark. Performing a grab attack also triggers Enraged Mode. Special ability Enraged Mode. While enraged, the ghoul can perform up to 3 consecutive Kaguni leaps and can special vault faster if they launch their Kaguni at a survivor. Enraged Mode remains active while there are survivors afflicted with Kaguni mark. Marked survivors will lose their mark if they are fully mended or if they are downed. The ghoul cannot grab attack marked survivors. Once no marked survivors remain, a countdown begins. When the countdown dissipates, Enraged Mode ends. A perfectly timed grab attack, tapping the attack button when the attack icon is displayed, will add extra time to the countdown. The countdown is paused while carrying survivors. Moving on to his add-ons, Iridescent Eye Patch. While in Enraged Mode, whenever you special vault a pallet on your 3rd consecutive Kaguni leap, it special breaks. Yamori's Mask. Upon hooking a survivor while in Enraged Mode, all survivors further than 40 meters scream and reveal their location for 3 seconds. CCG ID Card. Whenever you special vault with Kaguni Leap for 3 seconds, you see the auras of all Kaguni marked survivors within 24 meters. Fresh Coffee increases Kaguni Leap speed by 14%. Red-Headed Centipede. While in Enraged Mode, whenever you vault a window, it is blocked for 10 seconds. Torture Apparatus. When Enraged Mode ends, the ghoul gains 5% haste for 6 seconds. Amone's Necktie. While aiming mid-leap, reveals the auras of pallets and windows within 32 meters. Agori Tree Rope. If a generator is completed while the ghoul is in Enraged Mode, gain the undetectable status effect for 20 seconds. Mado's Gloves. Upon removing Kaguni mark, survivors suffer from the exhausted status effect for 15 seconds. Red Spider Lily. While in Enraged Mode, base attacks afflict survivors with the hemorrhage status effect for 6 seconds. Razy's Glasses. Upon entering Enraged Mode, reveal the auras of any healthy survivors repairing generators for 8 seconds. Bloodstained Handkerchief. Increases the Kaguni's reach by 1 meter. Broken Chain decreases Kaguni leap cooldown by 35% when not enraged. Hides Hidden Phones. Survivors affected by Kaguni mark are afflicted with the Oblivious status effect. Hainami's Umbrella increases the amount of time added to the enraged cooldown for each perfect timed grab by 10 seconds. Kaneki's satchel increases the speed of the third consecutive Kaguni leap by 30%. Anteku apron decreases the slide after a Kaguni leap by 50%. Kaneki's wallet increases the window to perform consecutive Kaguni leaps by 3 seconds. Taiyaki increases the enraged mode cooldown by 5 seconds. The Black Goat's Egg perfectly timed grab attacks grants a 100% blood point bonus. Thank you for joining us here at Exploring the Entity. We wanted to say thank you all for listening in on all of our episodes, and we wanted to truly apologize to all of you for any mistakes or any technical difficulties. We're trying to get the hang of this, and we're trying to explore different ways on how to script our episodes and kind of do our setups and all that. So again, we are very thankful for all of you joining us every week, and hopefully we will have a more consecutive actual schedule here for you guys soon. I'm going to hand it over to my co-host.
Follow us on Instagram at Exploring the Entity. And deadlings, keep your eyes on the shadows, listen for the claws, because the fog doesn't just surround you, it waits for you.